This is an intro. Who needs an intro? I don't need an intro. This is just a vape show. It's just a vape show. Vape show. This is an intro. Who needs an intro? I don't need an intro. This is just a vape show. It's just a vape show. Vape show.
What's up, YouTube? I'm your homeboy Josh, back at you with another video. Today, we're actually going to take a second look at the Cascata RDA from Cartel Mods. You may remember that I did a video on this a little while ago. You may remember the posts on it were completely out of whack, completely different than the authentic. They just came up like, I want to say it was something like 2, maybe even 3 millimeters higher than the authentic does, which made this thing way more difficult to build on than it has to be. I've actually had it adjusted so that it's more like a 1-to-1. Huge shout out to Misfit Vapers. That's one of the local shops that I hit up all the time. They adjusted this guy for me free of charge. They did not charge me a dime to go take a Dremel to it and file off those posts. I'll show you in the close-ups. So come on in here. Let's take a look at this guy. Yeah, that's what it is now that the work's been done on it. And they didn't charge me a dime to do it. They took off the extra over here, the extra over here. They cut down the post in the middle. It's about as close to as 1-to-1 as this is going to get. I think this middle post might come down a little bit closer on the authentic and the 1-to-1s, but it's way, way, way better than it was, let me tell you. I had to cut this middle screw down quite a bit. See, that's how the screw originally is, and I basically cut it in half just with a something like this. If you have a Cascata clone that is, not a 1-to-1 like I did, it's definitely possible to get it fixed up if you're trying to save a few bucks over buying a new 1-to-1. Go find someone that has a Dremel, or get a Dremel and take care of that. And if you haven't already bought a Cascata, and make sure you get a 1-to-1. What we're going to be building first is a single horizontal coil. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 wraps in it. The way I like to do this is I like to make sort of an L shape like this. And it looks a little funny right now, but that's because we're actually going to be bending it just a little bit. Grab it like this, not too tight, you don't want to screw anything up. And then actually just take this lead and bow it out like that. So it looks kind of like this for a minute. That way, when we're positioning it over here, this is ready to just wrap around just like that. And then you just screw this down like this. You can pull back on it a little bit, just let it catch really good. And then you just take this one and wrap it around this way. Probably plenty of different ways to bend the canthal or not bend the canthal and do this, but I think it comes out a little bit cleaner doing it this way. It's a little bit easier to work with. Oh, baby. All right, pop that. And if you want, you can go ahead and screw your other screw back in. At this point, you can leave it out, screw it in. I suppose it doesn't really matter. I like to screw it back in, just so I don't lose anything. I lose things really easily, in case you haven't figured that out by now. So building like this, you still end up quite a bit higher than the airflow. That's what we're going to tweeze. We're going to tweeze everything into place. Now that I've got that coil more or less shaped right, now I'm just kind of holding here and here and bringing it down a bit. Bring it just a little bit closer, down into the deck a little bit, and angling it toward the middle of that AFC. Being careful not to let the coil lose its shape. If it does, before it gets out of hand, jumping in there with the screwdrivers to clean it up a little bit. Okay. Okay, and let's see how it looks with the top cap on. I still want to be able to see the coil in there a bit. That's the goal for me. And we can. That's just me. That's the way I like to build. I like my my coil in direct contact with my air. I feel like it gives me great flavor. It gives me the best clouds. It works very well that way for me. Your mileage may vary. You know, there's no right or wrong way, if you ask me. A couple tips for building that way, though. You always want to make sure that you don't build so close that it's going to come in contact with the wall of the deck. And you don't want to... You want to be careful when you're wicking, because you don't want any wick coming between the airflow and the coil. That's a no man's land for your wick all up in here, okay? I only want enough cotton that the front section of the deck is wicked. Now let's push the cotton all up into here and maybe a little bit under the coil, kind of like that. So it's coming in underneath the coil a little bit. It's coming into the sides of the coil. And I like, you know, when it goes in there, juice is basically flowing from here over to there. That's the way I like to do it. Some people like to fill all this with cotton. I don't like that, because if you do that, then all the cotton back here is going to stay wet, and it's not going to go on over to here. And it's just juice collecting in the back, and it's wasted. This deck is designed to actually push the juice over to the coil, drawn by the heat, drawn by the angle of the deck. Let's pop that top cap on, and I'll see you up there. Alright, so this is another way I've seen people build the Cascata, with just a single horizontal coil. Kind of like people used to build the Veritas when they didn't feel like going through the trouble of doing the dual vertical coil. It's not enough heat for me. It's at 20 watts, it ohms out to 0.8 ohms, and it's a 4.2 volt coil. So it's basically 4.24, so it's hitting it harder than it would with on a mech with a freshly charged 18650. It's not enough heat for me, the way I like to vape. And flavor is not nearly as good. Not even close. Maybe if I close it off a little bit. Better if it's closed off a little bit, but I'm still getting, it actually makes it airier. Actually makes it an airier draw. Not closing it off, I mean, the single coil makes it an airier draw for me. And I mean, yeah, that makes sense. It's got, you know, the dual coil in front of that airflow is going to restrict the air a little bit more, maybe, but it's just not as satisfying of a hit. Let me just turn this the fuck up and see. And yeah, I mean, I could build it lower. I could build it at, you know, with 24, but like I said, the way those screws are, wrapping around the screws, I think the 24 would be a bit of a challenge, a bit of a hassle. 28 watts, 5 volts, 0.8 ohms. Now it has that flavor like wire. I don't like pumping, you know, I like my variable wattage devices because I like the protection personally, but I usually don't like pumping more than 4.2 volts through it. 4.3, 4.4, maybe I'll go up to 4.8, but I don't like pumping it past that because I feel like at that point I start to taste the Canthal. Maybe I'm crazy, maybe it's psychological, but I feel like I taste the Canthal if I pump it up too high. Yeah. So that build, yeah, it's a much cooler vape. It's not as flavorful. Meh. Maybe with more wraps, maybe with some more surface area. I don't know, but it doesn't come close to my dual coil. Not even close. So come on in here. Let's try this another way. We'll do 7 wraps. Okay, I've seen most people using 5 for this. And it's just not enough surface area that I think it's going to be anywhere, decent to where I want it to be. I feel like would not have enough flavor. Just not enough surface area. What I see people doing is they just position it like this, and they bring the the coil right in through there. And sometimes it's not even centered. Sometimes they don't even center it in front of the airflow, like that, or anything. They just, leave it all the way back here, like almost to the side. And I don't know about that, man. I don't know. But we're going to center it. At least center it in front of the airflow. That's the least I can do. And when I'm talking about people doing this, I'm mostly talking about people doing this on Instagram, by the way. There are not too many videos on the Cascata. There's a few, but not too many. You gotta be careful working with this RDA. I'll be honest with you, there's tons of hotspots on it. Every time I build on this RDA, there's always hotspots in the coil that I need to work out. Or else it just ends up, one of these leads over here, just flares up and it's just, and the coil's done. Yep, see, just like that. It doesn't take very much for one of those leads, just burn it right off. Yep, still pretty hot. I'm going to work the screwdriver in and out of it a few times like this. And I'm going to just do that with the screwdriver across the coil a little bit. It's starting to heat evenly because right now it's not. It's still not. And that's just about every coil I put in this RDA has hot spots. And a lot of times it just fries the leads and then I have to start over. And it's a little better, getting there. Just gonna pull it out toward the middle a little bit more, as much as I can. This lead's wanting to pop out a little bit off the screws, so I'm just gonna sort of bend it up a little bit. Yeah, there we go, that's better. And this one too, same thing. All right. Yeah, and we're back to our hot spots again. Every time you adjust it, there's hot spots. Every time. Never fails with this RDA. No matter what I'm building. It doesn't happen with all RDAs for me. I don't usually have too many hot spots in my coils, but this RDA just loves them for some reason. It just breeds hot spots. Yeah, that's better. And that's how I see a lot of people building this. And the coil's way up high. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, honestly, because I don't feel like you're going to get that good of a flavor off of it that way. Now working this one, it's just a matter of basically shoving a bunch of cotton right down the middle, and then spreading it this way, and spreading it this way. So it looks something like that. I'll see you guys up there. All right, so single vertical coil this time. Almost nothing for flavor. And that's a really, really flavorful juice. And the way it does to the flavor isn't great. It's like, It dummies down the flavor. It just brings it way, 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 way down. And I don't get just about anything that I'm used to getting off that juice. It's like vaping air. It's like nothing. Let's turn it up. Let's turn it way up. Let's turn it up to 30 watts, 5.3 volts. It's way higher than I like turning this thing up. Flavor starts to come through a little bit better there, but it's still not anywhere near where I want it to be. Not anywhere near where that juice should be. I gotta say, guys, that build on this, it's a waste. It's a total waste. I'm not even gonna spend any more time on it. Just come on in here, let's tear it out. Well, single coil builds in this guy are a huge disappointment, I gotta say. Single vertical, single horizontal. You see how much juice is left in there? See? I didn't even want to vape it. It was just a waste of time. All right, so it's gone. Enough of that. Let's try the dual coil version of that. Of that same sort of build. We'll try the dual coil version. See if that is any better. All right, so we got 2 strands of 26 again, and same drill bit, same screwdriver. And we're gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll do 7, just to give it a shot, okay? Just the negative leads we're gonna secure, okay? Oh crap, I always forget. Damn it. The other one you need to build in reverse. I'm forgetful. I'm stupid. I'm forgetful. I'm stupid. I'm both. But yeah, mostly I'm forgetful. Yeah, when building the vertical coils on the Cascata, dual vertical coils, the other one always goes in the opposite direction. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that 7? I always lose count. Now, what I like to do is this positive lead. All right, I bring it just about all the way around in front. So it's like that. Okay, so it's like practically looped around. And then take this one, and so that one's practically looped around as well. And then go ahead and tighten them down one final time. So these are just dragging on through like this, slowly. Don't just go yank on it because you're gonna fuck up the coil. Just slow, let it migrate, basically. So they end up kind of like that. That's how I see a lot of people building this. And, well, you'll see. Sometimes it even helps to come at the coil from behind like this when you're building on the Cascata. Especially with the dual coils. It's not perfect, it's a little bit off center, but for our purposes today, it'll do. It might have been better to build it on a thinner drill bit. A thinner screwdriver might have been better, but it'll work. Here's the thing about builds like this in the Cascata. You hear it? It's on, but you can hardly see the coil in there. Maybe a little bit. It's actually coming in really up high over the airflow. That's why I do not like builds like this in here, personally. Like I said, there's no right and wrong way to vape. There's no right and wrong way to build. It's just the way that suits you. But with this RDA, I just don't like these builds. I've tried them, and I've built them before, and I don't like it at all. And I've built it like this a few times, tried different, you know, some different things with it, but I gotta tell you, I like my way better. I'll tell you that right now. Alright, see you guys up there. So, the dual vertical coil and the Cascata without any centering of the coil in any way. For me, it beats the shit out of the single coils. I'll say that right now. A lot more flavor, a lot more vapor, a lot more heat. It's way, way better than the single coils, for me. But it's still, you know, it's coming up at the coil from an angle. It's coming in, has to come in this way to get to the coil. So it's not as good as it could be. It's definitely better. I could vape that, and it's probably easier to build than the way I build it. And if you haven't seen the way I build it, well, I'm going to show it to you again right now. Come on in. Alright, so the way I like to build the Cascata. Here's the screwdriver that we have been using this whole time. Here's the screwdriver that I'm going to use, just for size comparison. It's quite a bit smaller. I honestly can't build it the way I like to build it with this. Does not work. The coils are just too fat to fit in that space. Okay. So it's kind of like a 7 3/4 wrap that we're doing. Okay? It's got to have like kind of an L shape to it. With this bend, you actually want to go a little bit over the top of the coil. So a little bit higher than the top of the coil even. I guess we'll go there. So it looks something like that. And with the other one, it's pretty much the same thing, but you have to wrap in the opposite direction. And just like the first one, tippy tip tweezers, and bend up. And then just over the coil, and bend that way. Kind of like that. I recommend torching your coils first. It makes it a bit easier. I'm being a little lazy today, so I'm not going to do that. And we're actually going to flip this around. So it goes in like this, with the leads up top. See how both leads are up top, basically? Yeah. Putting the coil right up in here, and this time we're wrapping back into the deck instead of outside of the deck. Does that make sense? Whoops, lost track of you. Hey, come back here. And careful you don't go under that lead. That can be a problem later. So we're wrapped like this right now. And we're just tying it down. That lead out of the way. And we can actually just go ahead and clip that lead because we're done with it. Okay. And now the other one, we're not even worrying about this yet. Just leaving it kind of placed there. Again, careful you go over these leads instead of under them when you're wrapping around. Bend that lead up and just go ahead and clip it off. You can go ahead and position these if you want. So everything's kind of positioned right there. So it's actually sunken down into the deck. There's a view from the back. It's actually going down into the deck. You see the way that that bend works? Whether that bend that we put in the Canthal works, it kind of just rolls right up on the post. That's the idea. So you just want that bend to be right where that post ends. So it goes right over the top of the post. You just kind of grab these really good. You maybe crisscross them like this. It makes a good knot. Just like that. Not really a knot, just, you know, those wires are crissy-crossy in there. Hold them like that. Everything's nice and tight, and just tighten it right down. The secret is just bending that Canthal in the right place, and it sits perfectly on that positive post. Now before you even start firing this thing, before you even start pulsing it, you want to get it into shape. Running my tweezers along the coil is to get that started. Yeah, still pretty hot. And with this, it actually helps to shape them from the back if you can. And going in behind the coil like this and shaping from there. Lifting a little bit and shaping from the back. They're heating up pretty even at this point. It's not a hot spot that you see burning up there. I think it's just some excess juice or something. It's like two peas in a pod right there. I mean, they are right up next to each other. They are very neighborly. They are best buds together right there, man. Every coil needs a friend, right, Bob? All right. Watch it when watch it to the top cap. You see those? Yeah, that coil is right up on the airflow. It's perfection is what it is. And you see them in there? See this little gap between them. You can actually see the tiny gap between them. That's what I'm going for with this guy. Okay. Pop that top cap back on. I'll see you guys up there. All right, so the Cascata, the way I like it. Fuck yes. It's actually not a heat yet. It's a 0.3 ohm coil and it was down at 30 watts, so you can pump this bitch up a bit. All right. At 48 watts, it is at 4.20 ohms. It's a 0.33 ohm coil. Plenty of clouds, tons of flavor, full flavor. Like you feel it down in the pit of your stomach, there's that much flavor. I'm still tasting it now while I'm talking. It is a lot of heat, it's a lot of flavor, it's a lot of vapor. It's a very full-bodied vape. And it brings out all the right notes in this juice. That is where I like to build my Cascata. Now again, there's no right or wrong way to build an RDA, if you ask me. As long as it vapes well for you, that's great. That's all that matters. So this is the right way in my book because it's the right way for me. If you build it in such a way that there is no cotton in the way of your airflow, you're not going to get any extra constriction from that coil. It's just the perfect vape. Every single time I've built this coil, I've been happy with it. Every single time. Every time I've tried something new in the Cascata, I don't like it so much. So it's not the best RDA if you like to mess around with a bunch of different builds, if you ask me. I feel like with the Cascata, you're going to find one way to build it that works for you, and that's it. So until next time, I'm your homeboy Josh. Vape on, Vapers.